A very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for making time and joining us tonight on the evening review. My name is Toivon Jabela, your host. Tonight we are unpacking what happened in the High Court in the morning, where activist Michael Amushelelo was denied bail. He had appealed a similar decision by the Magistrates Court, and he was seeking recourse in the High Court. And to help us unpack those events today is his friend and fellow activist Dimbulukeni Nauyoma. So thank you, Dee, for making time. Really, it's a strange decision, according to a lot of people. I've been following social media and everything. If you can give me your reaction to what happened.
Well, I stand as accused number one. Accused number one is out.
Yeah.
It's accused number two, and then accused number three in Ngari.
Yeah.
Well, I think we stand to say that we still have faith in our judiciary system. But something was off from the beginning because these two cases that were running in the High Court. And Justice Naomi Shigute recused herself in one matter, and she never gave reasons. And she took on this case, this appeal case. And what is interesting enough is how she just came in and she just said, look, we are upholding the decision of the magistrate, and could not read her judgment out, so that we are able to comprehend and take it. She must take us into confidence, without fear or intimidation, that they had arrived at that conclusion through various steps. Now, if you trace back to what brought us to the High Court, was that Magistrate Salyonga said, look, I honestly, genuinely don't have a problem to grant you bail, but I am constrained with the type of conditions that I can prescribe to you. So it was a matter of it was not even a question whether bail must be granted or not, because she had arrived at that discussion, a decision that she can grant bail, but however, she is constrained with the aspect around the conditions. So we thought, when we came and we did our arguments in the High Court before the two learned judges, was to really look at those conditions that could be prescribed to Commissar Michael Amushelelo, accused number 2 in this matter, and we move forward. Because in the essence, what led to our arrest is not a when you look at it on the basis of what is happening in this country, we have not murdered anybody. In the words of the learned judge Liebenberg, he said, look, when we appealed in the High Court last year in August, the 22nd, when he delivered that judgment, he said, look, these people have not murdered anybody. They've not done extremist of crimes that are perpetuated in society, and therefore it shouldn't be a question of whether they should be out or not. And they can be curtailed, and these fears could be allayed. And one of the patriotic person who plays a pivotal role in any case is an investigating officer, of which when he testified at the bail hearing, the very first one, he didn't have a problem. He says, look, we can prescribe conditions. I don't have a problem. I don't think he's going to interfere in this case or in the investigation. And therefore, that was supposed to be one of the leeways that the court can exercise its discretion in favor of the applicant.
Yeah. The argument that has been used by some laymen and learned people in the legal space has been that the conditionalities that have existed in the case of Amushelelo make it very difficult for any court to now, because if a court say, we are going to release you on these conditions, and then you get arrested again in what seems to be a violation of those conditions, that it becomes very difficult for the court to then repeat the same mistake if you
The
like.
important part around the court is that it deals with the facts. Now, what are the facts before the court? There is no investigative officer in other two matters who have come forth through the prosecution to launch an application on the violation of those conditions. So in other words, you find people who are given a restraining order. And once you are given a restraining order not to visit this woman because you used to beat her, 3 days later she moves into your apartment. Nothing can be done on the basis that those conditions that were set, for as long as there's no application, you can't do that. And it's also perceived to have broken those conditions because you must look at the charge sheets. The one of Windhoek, the one of Walvis Bay, because those are the bases that people are using, and the one of the 21st of March. And the events of those two are even far apart from one another. I mean, look, the prosecution wanted to use common cause when those vehicles that were put up there apparently that were damaged in all those other aspects, to use common cause to say, look, because you are the leader of this protest, therefore you should be accountable to it. And even in my bail application, the learned magistrate said, no, you can't pin these people there because they were long gone before these events happened. So you really want to have confidence in the justice system, maybe still hope that all is not lost. But it's proving to be difficult.
Yeah. 21st March 2023, a lot of events happened. There was an early morning court case,
Yes.
I think actually coming from the previous night. And the judgment was delivered saying, you know, the protest has not been permitted. We are told that Amushelelo, maybe yourself and others, I don't know who else, then went to Katutura where the young unemployed people were congregating. What actually happened so much that it has led to this long incarceration?
Look, Toivo, on the 20th, in fact, we've written, Michael Amushelelo had written to the IG to, in line with the prescribed laws, to notify, and this is what is very important, this notification, to say, Inspector General, I'm writing to you way in advance. I know the Act gives me 72 hours, but I want to do this so that we can have this engagement around routes and those other things that can be done. And I'm writing to you well in advance on the 10th of March that let's have an engagement. We anticipate on the 21st of March to take to the streets to celebrate independence differently. Because an independent celebration to others who are comfortable, who are full on a daily basis, the people who are unemployed, the people who live under the poverty line, a million of us who live in the informal settlement, would not celebrate independence the same way somebody who lives in Ausblick would celebrate independence. A deputy director or somebody with full employment. So we want to celebrate independence differently. But what led to this is that, look, there was a stampede at Temperature where people were looking for 8 employees and over 1,000 people showed up. So we have a national crisis. So we want to celebrate by showing us, because remember the problem has always been, and even in the interview that we did with Desiree was, the statistics that we are throwing around and there are no faces. So these faces want them to come out and say, this is who we are. And this is how we want to choose to celebrate independence. 8 days later, the IG then says, no, it can't be done. But that then brought one single problematic issue. And we said, if we allow it to go unchallenged, it means that the IG can, at any given point, then refuse a constitutional right to be exercised by any other Namibian. So we, in the hope of good things, we thought the IG would say, okay, let us come and have a conversation around this matter. So we took it to court, and the court says, no, look, 4 a.m. in the morning, please come and demonstrate why you would suffer damages if this protest does not take place. So we went at 4 in the morning, made our arguments, solid and sound arguments. And the court, in exercising its discretion, didn't want to make a determination. So they said, look, I don't see that maybe you would suffer any recourse from this. Therefore, let the decision of the IG stand. And everybody else was not aware that there was an appeal in the High Court. And we now needed to take a decisive decision to say, look, you can't allow, and we knew that had we not gone there, they are going to send those guys who live at Harmony Center to these guys. They were going to send some of these guys who live just close here by Bragwater and unleash this police state in police machinery on the civilians. So we needed to take a decisive decision to say, look, let us go and have a conversation with these people. And we say, look, the court did not listen to us, but the court did also not say that we can't proceed. So in the spirit of all of us being law-abiding citizens, let us return on Friday. So that was a Wednesday. We will return on a Friday because they said we can give them any other date. So we're going to then arrange with everybody for that Friday. So we just went to merely inform them. And we met the RCIC then, very good man. But I don't know, he was on the instruction. The problem with uniform people, they are instructed what to say and what not to say. And the evidence is there. We try to be polite. We try to engage. We try to reach consensus to say, look, we just want to usher these people back to their houses. And we also move in the same spirit because we can't protest any longer. So in our way home, of course, the majority of these young people, like I said before, come from the informal settlements. The Havanas, the Hakahanas, the Okurengavas, Omgaliatotsina. So we headed then home to take some of these colleagues halfway. Why was that important? It was important because these people were going to disrupt traffic because they are angry. These are young people who were very angry on that day. We then realized on set that, look, they were going to block the roads. They're going to block other road users. And anything and everything can happen because out of that frustration, if you just let them go, you let them go and you proceed in a different direction, they would still have come back to us to say, look, your people that you have gathered there, this is what they've done and the damages that they've done. So we wanted to orderly take them until where we reached Sem Nauyoma, where we saw just whoop, 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 whoop. and that's it.
Yeah.
And we were puzzled because we didn't understand. At that point when we were arrested, no property was damaged. Yeah. No road user was blocked. There was no threat on other people. In fact, what society did and those people that were in their houses, they saluted those young people who stood up because they knew that the protest was going to happen, but also expressed their disappointment. To say, but why is our government not allowing the young people to showcase this? So we tried to explain, and the mere fact that Michael Amushelelo had written to the IG, the mere fact that I communicated the message to the people, and Ina, unfortunately, just for being there as a member of parliament, we were then arrested.
It's an incredible story. We'll continue with Dimbulukeni Nauyoma after the break. The show continues. So there was a message sent today on a WhatsApp group of the police, the Commerce Regional Police Media Group, by an NBC journalist who was at the scene on the 21st of March.
Yes.
And this young man says, when the judgment came out today, he posted on that police group to say, but colleagues, I was there from the first minute of this whole process, the demonstration, the march and everything, to the point where people got arrested. And at no point did I observe anything that even constituted the charges that you guys eventually got.
Yes.
To say, if you say, for example, violent conduct or I can't remember now on top of my head.
Malicious damage to property.
Yes, exactly. Where did any of those things actually happen? He was asking on the police group. Nobody answered. And this is why I need you to engage me, Dimbulukeni. What violations, apart from really the gathering of people that was not authorized, what actual violations took place other than that?
You see, it's even when we got the charge sheet, we were astonished because, you see, we are not even charged for violating the Public Gatherings Act. Because people gathered, and it says that more than 20, you can be charged for that. So the charges are not even on that. That is number one. We are charged with incitement to commit public violence. Then we are charged with malicious damage to property. We were charged with violating of a court order. Because you see, it's lay people who are in the out of frustration. So when we got those charges, even first, it says, just a few kilos outside the Commerce region, or inside still the Commerce, but from the airport. We were shocked and we were laughing. To say, what did we do, apparently?
Yeah.
No, you broke police, what, state property, what. When we go to our bail applications, we are told there's a Baki that was in Agustinium. So you can see that emotions superseded logic. And what puzzles most of us now, when we look at the law and the facts presented with the courts, is that it's two different things. One magistrate says that they can't pin Dimbulukeni Nauyoma to the scene where the acts of violation took place. There is no evidence that shows Dimbulukeni Nauyoma, Michael Amushelelo, Ina Hengari, saying that let us beat up the police, or let us destroy, or let us do, because in incitement to commit that, you must have said it. And people carried out, that is why you are charged under common cause. To say if you say it and people do it, then it means that you've incited that. So there isn't any conduct that was done. And it will be very interesting when we go to trial to look at the disclosure that the state would give us in the witness statements by the police officers that they've put in there. And when they are tested, this evidence under cross-examination, what is going to happen? Because you realize that where our country is headed to, it's a dark hole. A dark hole where to exercise constitutional rights must be a prerogative of the government of the day, those that are in charge of prosecution, and those that must make the call. I get threatened to not even air my voice, because if I do it, other people are going to suffer those repercussions. If I do it, Michael will not be released. If I do it, this will not be done. So you ask yourself and say, but what happened to the rule of law that we went to, or they went to fight for? What is happening is that people are implementing the apartheid playbook from A to Z, where we were saying that because we are the majority in this country as black people, these laws are oppressive to us, and in order for us to change those laws, we must make our voices heard. We are simply now saying, let us suffer in silence, Nobody must stand up when they are oppressed. And in fact, even if you stand up, there must be nobody, the solidarity in pain must not exist. So that is where we are going.
Yeah. I mean, look, I have seen a lot of, I have followed Michael Amushelelo's activism, and I understood the initial arrests. As a lay person in law, I could justify, I could argue why certain arrests were made. He was showing up at people's workplaces and, really shouting at people and, harassing them, if you like. But this particular arrest, the current one, is the one that puzzles me personally. I've seen people like Dr. Windhoek Nauyoma, who's a constitutional expert, PhD, Oxford, speaking publicly for the first time perhaps this week, saying, look, this cannot be correct. We are heading in the wrong direction as a country, because if we are actually crushing divergent views, then it's a very, very difficult situation to accept. And this is how countries actually, many of these dictatorships in Africa where opposition are being silenced and whatnot, they started with this thing that seemed to be very small. Today is Michael Amushelelo, and then the next day is Toivo Njabela and so forth. But were you in court today by any chance?
Yes, I made it to court.
How did the man take it?
I mean, he's a joyful person. So he started smiling and laughing because it didn't make sense. And in all honesty, Toivo, and we must, people must know what we are thinking about. Is that you see, you always reach a point where it's a peak for everybody.
Yep.
The youth of the 60s reached a peak. The youth of the 70s reached a peak. The youth of the 80s and the 90s, we are still struggling to reach our peak. The Generation X in 2020, they showed us in the street here with Shut It All Down. So everything has a timing. Everything has its peak. If we are solidifying our dictatorship in the name of constitutional democracy of every 5 years, we just get a different face, but the system remains as it is, it's not going to work for us. And there will come a time when society will be called to make that decision on what must happen. Yes, we can be comfortable because we have running water. In fact, you just look at the crime statistics that are happening currently. You look at the means of production and the ownership of them. We must be able to seriously interrogate and say, and somebody was saying, look, this thing sometimes is not a race issue. Ne? It's not a race issue in the sense that blacks were suppressed or oppressed by white. Yes, you can look at it that way, but you look at the means of production. Let's just start with the basic urban land. Under apartheid, the white people and the wealthy people have had bare minimum of 800 square meters of land. And when Katutura was formed, it was around 250 to 300. Now, we got independence. Any other plot that was serviced by the city of Windhoek through PPP or their own money, what is the size of that area? 300 to 350. We are perpetuating that colonialism even under the black administration. And it's not anything that people don't think about.
Yeah.
So if you get 300 square meters of a plot, what can you do with it? You build a house. The value of that house gets to, if you like, currently what's the going rate? 1.2, 1.3 million. But if you just cross the line to 1,000 square meters in a house that is on it, easily gets you to 4, 5 million.
Yeah.
What is it that you can practically do if you're a young person who wants to do business?
I agree. Now, the last question is that there has been a lot of support. Solidarity might be more social media and whatnot, which is not, the power of social media cannot be undermined, but
Yes.
but then you also just have a lot of keyboard warriors, so free Amushelelo, but there isn't much that we can do as ordinary citizens. His political party, and I know that you align a lot lately with the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters. Do you think the party still supports the young man, or did they now feed him to the dogs?
They've been with him, and most of us from day one since of our arrest, and they're still doing the best that they can. Of course, there are things that you want to put out there, and there are things that people would rather want to do and say, let's get the work done. We hear what people are doing. And there's a lot going on to say, yeah, but people that we're fighting for are no longer with you. The real practical question is, what is it that they can do? They must go and break prisons. We must have a lawless country. Because remember, even in as much as we are fighting to remove the government of the day, we would want to govern a governable country. And we can't be at the forefront of wanting to create chaos. You look at what had happened in other states. Countries who were beautiful, and they've gone through worse things. Today is difficult to rebuild those economies to where they must be. So people would always say people have moved away from it. People have not moved an inch.
Yeah.
People, in fact, are more day-to-day pledging their support in what they think can be done, advising the legal team in what must be done. Of course, there needs to be a lot. Should we go to the Supreme Court, there would be a lot of financial resources that needs to be deployed.
Yeah.
Of course, we already understand that our people don't have those resources, and you can't expect them to pull out. But those that can must reach out to the legal team, and so that we get to that point. So it's not that people have closed and they are saying is business as usual.
Yeah.
We are constantly trying to see how best can we do things differently. But also, the message from the government is that anybody who wants to stand up, these are the repercussions that would happen. So, yes, at times partners and close family members would feel, but that love is no longer there.
Yeah.
But people must also, are also saying, look, but if I am a prosecutor, the best I can do is recuse myself from this case because I don't want to be given instructions.
Yeah.
If you are a judge, for example, there are some who says, no, but something is not right here.
Yeah.
And if they take up the case and give us bail, then maybe they will also be dealt with. So
Yeah.
you find yourself in those circumstances.
Yeah.
But even today, the deputy president of the Namibian Economic Freedom Fighters was there. And maybe I must make it clear, we align ideologically.
Yeah.
In terms of what we want to do for this country. And I align with many people. I make no apologies for it. Because in order for us to remove the government of the day, we must join forces. We would, for example...
Time.
Yes. For example, just on the going, we want to launch something that can consolidate all these unemployed graduates and youth that we have in the country. And we can try and negotiate. When new mines open, we take them there. When projects open, we take them there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, these young people must now start to realize that elections is next year. We must go get registered. Whichever, whether we go to candidate X, candidate B, let's remove the government of the day and unplug it.
So it's always nice having you on the platform.
No, most welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is Dimbulukeni Nauyoma. He's a social justice activist and a friend of Michael Amushelelo.
Accused number one.
He's accused number one. Accused number two is in jail and was denied bail today in the High Court. Thank you for watching.